With us now is Dr. Jacques Neria, formerly with Israeli military intelligence and former foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Good evening.
Good evening.
This looks like another proof that Lebanon is drifting into a chaos.
Well, we've been talking about Lebanon in the last year, about this country going into an abyss. And the fact is that, just to give you a number now, 40% of all doctors, MDs in Lebanon have left the country. 30% of all the assistant nurses have left the country. They found their place in the Emirates and other places and in Europe. So this is a country where if you have to fill a tank, you have to pay half of your monthly salary. This is what's going on in Lebanon. We're talking about the electricity. For years, the Électricité du Liban, which is the biggest organization, was supplying only half the time electricity from 6 to 6. And from 6 p.m. till 6 the next day, it was all private or Turkish. And the Turks were providing 350 megawatts a year for almost $860 million. This is how the money of the central bank was depleted. And now you found yourself with a grid that barely supports itself. Two main power stations in Zaharani and Deir Amar have been closed. And this means that total darkness is on Lebanon. So right now, the army has given some of its fuel as a strategic reserve, and this is enough for 2 or 3 days.
That sounds like a total nightmare. Unbelievable.
It is a nightmare.
Is there any opportunity there, or not so much?
Well, you know, Lebanon is a lost case today because, the way the country is built, it was built on sand. I mean, the meaning of all the alliances between the different communities were just there because, everybody wanted to have a piece of the cake. But since the cake disappeared, there's nothing to be shared. And the only one who has a part of the cake right now is Hezbollah, because Iran is funding it and giving it the finance. And this is how Hezbollah right now is predominating the Lebanese scene and almost controlling the presidency.
Well, you know, maybe Israel will help. So we'll hear about that from Cairo now. We'll be joined from Cairo tonight by Dr. Marwa Maziad, from the American University in Washington, D.C. Good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So apparently the U.S. and Egypt are trying to mobilize Israel to help Lebanon.
In what way that is?
In maybe using Israeli gas as one of the ways to help the energy crisis in Lebanon. Anything about that from Egypt?
I would say, well, that's news to me from you, but the idea that the gas relations between Egypt and Israel is that the pipelines that take some of the Israeli gas via Egypt to be exported actually to Europe, Egypt has been clear about wanting to be a hub for all this gas of the Mediterranean to converge on Egypt and then be sent out to Europe. I think there is talk now that maybe there would be some divergence of that gas to go to Lebanon. And if that is the case, actually, that would be considered quite positive in the sense that if Egyptian gas or even the Israeli gas that goes through the Egyptian pipelines goes via Jordan and Syria to Lebanon, all of that is positive in the sense that both Lebanon and Syria would be brought back into the Arab fold more so than being part of the Iranian axis in the region. So this can be a way of bringing Syria back, which is a very strategic interest of Egypt throughout the past 10 years. And now other Arab countries are finally understanding that maybe this is a better way of containing Syria than leaving it to Iran.
Right. So to what extent is Cairo worried about what's happening in Lebanon?
Well, I don't speak for the Egyptian government, certainly, but analytically, I would say Egypt has proven that it outlasted the chaos in the entire region since 2011. Certain states fell apart, either politically as the actual state with its border fell apart, or in a situation like that of Lebanon, economically, it is falling apart. So Egypt is very interested in the stability of neighbors so that it can maintain its own stability. So it's very concerned that Lebanon would be going through all of these crises, and in one way or another, it would like to mobilize the regional players, as well as the United States, certainly, to be on board regarding the ways of helping Lebanon in a more sustained and long-term way.
Right. Dr. Messiad in Cairo, thank you very much. Back to you here in the studio, Dr. Neria. This idea that some cooperation between Egypt and possibly Israel in an indirect way could help Lebanon, is this
I've
like...
never heard such a bizarre idea as the one that was emanated by the Americans. I mean,
right.
Trying to counter the Iranian part of what's going on in Lebanon, they say, okay, let's give them gas from Egypt, but Egypt has no gas to export. Egypt needs Israeli gas. It comes from the Leviathan and Tamar to
from
Egypt,
Israel.
From Israel. And now there's a grid between Egypt and Jordan, but Jordan cannot export to Syria because it has not enough gas. So the gas that comes to Jordan comes from Tamar, the gas field. So and finally it goes through Syria in order to provide electricity to Lebanon. You know, we have to provide electricity to Hezbollah. This is what's happening. This is very
who knows? Maybe it's the new Middle East.
This is the new Middle East.
Jacques Neria, thank you very much.